So it's interesting to hear when you guys, especially the ones before me, are talking about 5G and what 5G can do in the future. For me, it's always interesting to know what can 5G do right now to help business and industries. So I'm working for Lufthansa Industry Solutions, and we are part of the big Lufthansa group, and we try to solve problems. We are looking at new technologies. So I'm a technology scout, and 1.5 years ago in summer 2019, I was meant to look at 5G and what 5G can do for the future, or what 5G can do for Lufthansa itself. So what we decided then was to build our own 5G networks, and that's what we did roughly 1 year ago. So in January, in January 2020, we activated 2 5G networks on our campus. Two, because there are 2 different ways. We already talked about non-standalone, standalone. I'm not going into the technical details now, but I want to explain to you how it helped our business in the last year. So the Lufthansa business, especially in this Corona crisis. So what we did with the 5G network, we asked our people who has connectivity problems, because what we were able to see in 5G in the last year or in 2019, there are not so many things there yet that 5G can do. We saw, okay, 5G can do a very big data rate, and yes, the latency will be lower. So we focused on the use cases in 2019, end of 2019, in our big group. Where would 5G be beneficial? The first use case is the remote table inspection that you see on the left side. In order to understand that, you need to know what our company is doing here in Hamburg, northern Germany. The Lufthansa Technik company is inspecting aircrafts mainly. So the engines of the aircrafts, they are coming to us. And they are coming to us from a lot of different customers. For example, airlines in the Lufthansa group, but also other airlines. I'm not sure if we have Air France aircrafts in our inspection halls, but those engines are coming to our hangars, and we inspect them together with the technicians from the airline. So the airline technicians from, let's say, Air France is coming to our base in Hamburg, our technicians, and we are coming together and inspect those engines together to see if this engine, now I'm talking about engines, if this engine has to be repaired, if this engine is allowed to fly the next, I don't know, 10 flies or whatsoever. But we have some airlines who have a lot of engines in our base, and when they are not as close as France, maybe they are far away in South Africa or some other places, it's a very big hassle to come to our place all the time to inspect those engines together. So we set up a remote table inspection. It's called table inspection because we take this engine apart to all different little pieces and to look at all the single pieces. So we said, let's do that. We are a remote table inspection. We are a high quality video stream. But this is a big hangar with a lot of metal, and we are walking around. We are walking from one big part of the engine to some other tables in another part of this hangar. This hangar is like 8,000 square meters wide, and we are walking to different parts. So at first we thought we could solve this with Wi-Fi, but what we've seen is that when we switch from one Wi-Fi access point to another, we always had drops in this high quality video stream. So this is a very important issue, not just for our remote table inspection, because this video stream has to be very, very high quality, because we have to look at 4mm scratches if those scratches are have to be repaired or so. So we said, like, okay, this could be a 5G case. It's not so much about IoT. It's not so much about self-driving vehicles or self-flying vehicles or whatsoever. It's about connectivity and reliability and security and safety. This were our issues in our industry, because we need this quality high video stream to have this remote video stream available. So when we set up this network and it was activated in January, or yes, 1 year ago, we made the first call to our customers, still before coronavirus hit Germany. And our customers said, like, wow, we never had a good video stream like this. And we figured, okay, maybe 50% of our table inspections will be remote in the future. And then Corona hit Germany, or hit Europe and the whole world. And what happened? Nobody was allowed to come to our base anymore. And a lot of people were not even allowed to travel to Germany or to our base where we inspect those engines. So what happens? The engineers of those airlines were not allowed to come to our base. So all of the table inspection switched to a remote table inspection. And that was only happening and only possible because we had that 5G network set up. We tried it with the public 4G. It didn't work because we were inside the hangar with a lot of metal. We tried it with more Wi-Fi access points in the past, but that just got worse because more access points means more hopping from one access point to another. I see now a question. We're frustrating not being able to ask you my questions directly. Still, would you be able to share a few insights beyond aeronautics about other use? Yes, I will do that. Just to give you two different examples, because they were talking about this high bandwidth and they were talking about the latency. We have those two use cases. We solved those problems with 5G, but we also tested a lot of things. We tested the latency. What really is the latency right now in a 5G campus network? So we have a setup with 3.7 gigahertz to 3.8 gigahertz. And we tested the download bandwidth, the upload bandwidth. We tested the range, how much area do we cover, and we tested latency and stuff like that. Just give you a quick example of the second case, this virtual cabin modification. For that, we need a high download bandwidth inside our aircraft, inside the hangar. So we have our antenna outside the aircraft, and we need to have data through the hull of the aircraft. And that was for us very interesting. And none of the CSPs were able to tell us before how much drop would we have. In the end, we were able to achieve 1.2 gigabits per second inside the aircraft, which is very good because with the augmented reality that we're using there, we need a lot of data. So I'm going to show you the second slide, just talking about the latency test. And now you will realize why latency is so important, especially when it comes to Wi-Fi. This is a test where we were walking inside our hangar and we tested the latency with Wi-Fi, with our 5G network, and with the public available 4G network. So what you can see is that there is a drop in the latency. It goes to 3 seconds, so 3,000 milliseconds, because this is the timeout of the ping test. And this always happened when we switched from one access point to another. Now look at 5G. I think you cannot even see it because the peaks are so low. But you see the numbers on the right side. So the average in 5G was roughly 16 milliseconds, and the lowest was 10 milliseconds in our 5G network. This is not the 1 millisecond that you've seen in presentations what 5G can do, but it solves a lot of problems. It solves our problems because there's no drop whatsoever now. But we had those drops with Wi-Fi. And now think about self-driving vehicles or self-driving things inside an industry, because I've seen that in other 5G projects as well, where they had self-driving vehicles at first in Wi-Fi. And what happened is they stopped. They had those self-driving vehicles inside their not hangars, but storage facilities. And they stopped. Whenever they reached a boundary of a Wi-Fi cell, they stopped because the data just dropped out. They reconnected to another Wi-Fi cell and they drove again. Then they switched to 5G network, as we have, and now they are continuously driving around. So whenever you're talking about continuous data that you need, and you need it while you are moving around in your industry or in your facilities, you need a mobile network. And for us, it needs to be a private network because of all the metal that we have inside. So this is a very, very important slide, and this is our own measurements. As I said, we did many, many measurements on different aspects, and also the bandwidth, as I explained, 1.2 gigabits per second is what we could see. Coming to the latency, we have another network, and we were able to get the latency down to 7 milliseconds. So those are different industry aspects. But what we're also doing, as I said, Lufthansa Industry Solution is consulting on different industries, not just the Lufthansa, but also other industries. And we are also consulting in the wind sector. So imagine you have a wind farm, an offshore wind park, and you have a lot of sensors on those wind parks. And we are continuously working with them together when it comes to drone, automatic inspections and stuff like that, because we know how to automatically inspect aircrafts. It's a little similar when it comes to wind farms. And their people told me how expensive it is just to get a new cable to those wind farms offshore. It's 200,000 euros for a cable to the next windmill. Now imagine you want to add another sensor. You want to add a sensor for bird detection or aircraft detection on those windmills. We can now achieve that very, very easily with a 5G network. And coming back to one aspect that I think Francois said earlier, when it comes to beamforming, we are using beamforming in our 5G networks as well. It's not so much about covering a wide space. It's more about focusing on a specific end user, and this is very important. So whenever you think about, is it expensive to get another cable to that point, or can I do it with a mobile connection? You have to think about the costs for the cable, and you have to think about what can 5G do right now, because this is the main aspects for us, is how can it solve problems today? And again, for us, the problems were connectivity and security and reliability. Coming to my second last thing is the reliability. The network that we set up 1 year ago, the two networks, and the one network that today I'm in my home office, but yesterday I was in my 5G networks trying out new devices. We not had a single minute of failure. 100% it was on all the time. That was really great. And the last aspect, when you are thinking about right now, military application. Okay, let me think about military in a second. But the last aspect, if you're thinking about 5G right now, and 5G in industry, is how can you connect your devices? What end devices are there right now? Because up till a couple of weeks ago, you could only use phones or some tablets or those gateways, 5G to Wi-Fi gateways. 5G end devices are very, very rare right now. So yesterday I was able, this is the first IoT end device 5G that I was able to integrate in my 5G network yesterday. So now I can directly attach our robots or some other devices into our 5G network. And this is very, very important. You have to think about your use cases and what end devices your use cases. Okay, some questions. Mokrain, Mizan, we never hear any military application of 5G. Can you mention any? No, actually, I don't know about some military besides some conspiracy theories, but I can think about a lot of stuff. And it's again about connectivity. If you need, let's say, a lot of video streams in a large area, and again, you would need to cover it with some mobile application. I think 5G can help, because we were talking earlier about those high frequency with 26 gigahertz, with 60 gigahertz coming along. But 5G can also work on 700 megahertz, or on other countries, some other frequencies, with a long distance, not the high bandwidth, but a long distance. So 5G for us, again, is just one of the connectivity solvers, and for us it solves a lot of problems. So I think this was the only question. Is there in Germany some public health concern about 5G? Oh, linked to higher frequency. Yes, we have those concerns about 5G, and I think most of the times they are not justified, because they are talking about those high frequency, like millimeter waves, 26 gigahertz. But I think Francois also mentioned that earlier. Most of the normal towers in Germany are at 2.1 gigahertz right now for 5G, and the new towers and the ones that we build up is at 3.7 gigahertz. So look at your Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi is at 5 gigahertz. So you have the same frequency, and it's not just about the frequency, it's also about the power. And our power is the same as in Wi-Fi. We have 250 milliwatts coming out of our Wi-Fi cells. I just wanted to give you a little insight about the experience that we had in that 1 year of 5G. We are happy with the 5G that we have. We think it helped us a lot intensively through the Corona crisis. And I suggest to you, think about it if 5G for your industry would also solve just problems today, not just in the future, but today.